Hello friends. About 70% of the friends who watch my videos are not subscribed, and I would be very happy if you did. Also, don't forget to press the like button and leave your comments. Your interaction makes the content reach everyone and contributes to the growth of the channel. Thank you all. From which country or city do you follow the channel? The hollow echoes. The doors swung open on their own, rusty hinges wailing like a wounded beast, and I nearly dropped my coffee, the cup trembling in my grip. A voice, low, hoarse, as if it had clawed its way from a buried throat, sliced through the stillness. Finally, you're here. I'm Troy, 32, night guard at Greystone Asylum, a decaying wreck untouched since the 70s. First shift, and I'm already regretting not sticking to hauling freight. The pay's double, true, but standing there, flashlight jittering in my hand, I feel like I've stepped into something I can't just walk away from. Rumors had trickled my way, patients vanishing, staff bolting mid-shift, never seen again. Ghost tales for restless kids, I'd thought. I faced worse than shadows, lived it, breathed it. Jamie's face flickered in my mind, 16 and grinning, before the crash that stole him. My doing. I shook it off and stepped inside. Boots crunched shattered glass, the air heavy with dust and a sour tang, like soil after a downpour. Who's there? I called, my voice ricocheting off peeling walls. Silence answered, save for a mournful howl through broken panes. Wind, I told myself, though it didn't feel right. The place sprawled like a maze. Gurneys toppled, paint flaking like dead flesh, scratches etched into the plaster. My beam snagged on a sign. Ward B, quiet zone. Quiet? Hardly. A sharp tap sounded behind me like nails raking tile. I spun, light cutting the gloom. Nothing there. Pull yourself together, Troy, I muttered, sipping my tepid coffee. Chalked it up to 3 hours of sleep and the whiskey I downed to dull the day. Then the doors crashed shut. Sudden, deafening, like a thunderclap. I tugged the handle, locked tight. From outside, my pulse thudded, a steady drum in my ears. Troy! The voice rasped again. So close I swore I felt breath brush my neck. Breath that couldn't be there. I'm no churchgoer, but I nearly whispered a prayer. Who are you? I shouted, my voice splintering. No reply. Then a chuckle, soft, sodden, like a drowning man's last gasp. I ran, flashlight beam dancing, hunting for an exit, window, door, anything. Stumbled on a stairwell instead, narrow and steep, up or down, a promised safety. I was mistaken. The steps groaned under me, each one threatening to buckle. The air grew colder, biting, clawing at my lungs. Halfway up, I paused, catching my breath, and heard them. Footsteps, slow and ponderous, climbing behind me. I turned, light trembling in my grasp. Dust swirled in the beam, but no figure emerged. You're just tired, I told myself, though my hands shook harder. At the top, a hallway unfurled, doors lining both sides, all sealed. One clicked ajar as I passed, a sliver of black beyond. Quickened my pace, heart hammering, refusing to glance back. That voice murmured again, fainter yet nearer. You can't leave yet. I didn't dare turn around. Second night and I'm back. Call me stubborn or too strapped to quit. The doors stayed put this time, but the air pressed down, dense as a soaked quilt. I'd brought a recorder, a beat-up thing from a pawn shop, determined to snag that voice and prove I wasn't unraveling. The hallway loomed, shadowy and vast, and then it began. Hushed voices, dozens weaving together like a radio caught between signals. Not words yet, just tones. Furious hisses, sorrowful moans, frantic pleas, slithering under my skin like worms. I set up at the nurse's station, a cramped nook with a desk drowning in dust and faded papers. Nudged a chair aside and found a journal. Leather split, pages crisp as dried leaves. Patient 47, it read. Won't speak, says the walls hear everything. I scoffed, madness scribbling about madness. But the murmurs grew sharper, piercing the haze in my head. Troy, my name, crisp and undeniable. I switched on the recorder, fingers unsteady. Say it again, you creep, I challenged. Silence mocked me, Then my flashlight stuttered, not fading, just taunting me. On, off, like a brat toying with a switch. I smacked it against my palm, growling, "Worthless junk." That's when I saw it. A silhouette on the wall, tall and stooped, gliding when I stood still. I whirled, beam slashing. Empty space. "No way in hell," I said, louder than intended, my voice ringing down the corridor. The murmurs swelled, a choir now, intoning my name in a warped lullaby, rising and dipping in eerie waves. I snatched the journal, shoved it into my jacket, and bolted, boots slamming tile. My breath came in gasps, coffee churning in my gut. The voices trailed me, seeping from the walls, the floor, everywhere. "You're here," they breathed. "You're ours." I shouted back, "I don't belong to you, bastards." But it sounded frail, terrified. Reached my truck, slammed the door, fumbling the keys twice before they caught. Played the recorder, braced for static. Got it, then stark and clear. "You can't leave." Not my voice, not anyone I recognized. Peered at Greystone through the windshield, its bulk hulking against the night. A light flared on, 3rd floor, a window I'd never neared. I stared, chest tight, waiting for it to dim. It held steady. The murmurs lingered in my mind, faint as a bad dream. I drove off, convincing myself it was exhaustion, the wind, anything but the truth gnawing at me. Something in there knew me, craved me. At home, I flipped through the journal. More scrawl. "They hear your thoughts. They keep what you offer." I tossed it aside, poured a stiff drink. The recorder sat quiet. I left it untouched that night. 3rd night, and I'm a fool for returning. That recording's lodged in me now, a splinter I can't dig out. Climbed to the 3rd floor, stairs moaning like they'd collapse beneath me. The air up there reeked, thick with a rot that clung to my throat. My flashlight swept over doors, patient rooms, nameplates dangling, rusted through. One eased open as I passed, slow and intentional, daring me to peek. Couldn't resist. Inside, a skeletal bed frame, a fractured mirror, and walls gouged deep. Not chaos, words. "They see you," scratched again and again, some smeared with dark, crusted streaks. I laughed, a shaky, hollow sound. "Sure they do." Then I heard it. A breath, slow and sodden, brushing my neck. I spun, beam carving the dark. Nothing met it, but the mirror held something. My face, yes, but warped, eyes stretched wide, mouth quivering as if stifling a cry. I blinked, stared on. "Enough of this?" I muttered, backing out, heart thudding like a trapped animal's. The hall unfurled ahead, doors clicking in rhythm with my steps. A taunting beat. Jamie flickered in my mind. 16, chuckling beside me, rain streaking the windshield before it all shattered. My fault. I shoved it down, but the hushed voices rose, jeering now. "Troy, Troy, Troy." I bellowed, "Be quiet!" And they paused, for 3 fleeting seconds. Then a scream ripped through, shrill, broken. A child's agony. I froze. Not Jamie. Couldn't be. Kept moving, found a closet door ajar. Inside, boxes of files, a smashed radio, and a stench like singed hair that turned my stomach. Kicked a box. Photos tumbled out, black and white, patients and staff with vacant gazes. One stopped me. My jawline, my weary eyes. No, absurd. Pocketed it, hands trembling. The scream echoed again, nearer, rebounding off the walls. I ran, but the corridor twisted, doors sprouting like weeds, silhouettes stretching long and fluid behind me. They shifted, those silhouettes, gliding along the plaster, exhaling in low, rasping gusts, their edges curling like smoke tendrils. I didn't glance back, just ran, beam bouncing wildly, slammed into a dead end, a blank wall where a corner should have been. Turned slow, breath-catching. The shapes loomed, towering now, swaying as if alive. One advanced, no face, just a gaping maw where a mouth belonged. It breathed, a gurgling wheeze, and I darted past, shoulder crashing into a door. Inside, an empty room, dust thick, a window too high to climb. I slumped against the wall, chest heaving, whispering, You're okay, you're okay. The photo crinkled in my pocket. Pulled it out. Still my likeness, but the eyes darkened, bottomless. The voices crept back, soft, mocking. You left him. Jamie's face flared. Blood on his cheek, glass in his hair. I clenched my eyes shut, banishing it. When I looked, the silhouettes had vanished. But the breathing lingered, steady and close, sharing the room with me, patient as death. Fourth night. I'm armed with a crowbar and a foul mood. Found a sealed door on the second floor. Ward C, padlocked, chains rusted yet unyielding. The murmurs were subdued tonight, but the air thrummed, charged like the calm before lightning. I jammed the crowbar in, metal shrieking as I forced the lock free. Stepped inside, and the atmosphere twisted, wrong, oppressive, like stumbling into a stranger's terror. The walls were a frantic canvas. Crayon scrawls, ink streaks, words scratched with desperate nails. It hears us. Don't look. Run, run, run. My throat constricted. A gurney hunched in the center, straps dangling, stained a deep, earthy brown. A faint tap pulsed, slow, steady, a heartbeat in the floorboards. I traced it to a room without a number, door cracked open. Inside, a chair bolted down, restraints chewed apart, bite marks scarring the leather. The tapping ceased, then resumed behind me. I turned deliberately, crowbar raised. Nothing greeted me, but the lights, bare bulbs swaying loose, dimmed, flickering without visible wires. A voice, not a murmur, spoke, cool and precise. You shouldn't be here. It carried the weight of a clinician's judgment. I swung at the emptiness, shouting, "Face me!" The bulbs died abruptly. In the blackness, footsteps dragged, heavy, deliberate, circling me. My flashlight snared a glimpse. A shape, unnaturally tall, head tilted at a grotesque angle. I blinked. It dissolved. I bolted, tripping over something yielding, cloth, perhaps an old smock. Reached the main hall, chest burning. Checked my recorder. Captured that voice. You shouldn't be here. Then static and Jamie's laugh, bright and cutting. My stomach lurched. That hadn't been there before. Pulled the photo. Jamie in a patient gown, smiling, forever 16. Behind him, a faint outline. Me? Impossible. The tapping trailed me, soft, persistent, down the corridor. Fifth night, and I'm fraying at the edges. That photo's a stone in my pocket, dragging me under. Jamie's gone, 3 years, my fault, case closed. Not here, not real. I stormed Ward C again, crowbar swinging like a dare to whatever lurked. The hushed voices returned, louder, intimate, naming me brother. This isn't in my head anymore, it's flesh and bone, and it's angry. Found a room with a chalkboard, names etched, struck through, some smudged as if erased in haste. One leaped out, James, room 12. My chest seized. Room 12 waited down the hall, door ajar, leaking a low hum. Stepped in, a mattress, a sink, and a drawing on the wall, chalk damp and fresh. 2 stick figures, Troy and Jamie, linked hands. I brushed it. The chalk smeared wet, red on my fingertips. Blood? No chance. The sink dripped, loud and slow. Peered closer. Water flowed black, pooling on the floor, spreading like spilled ink. A voice, not Jamie's, intoned, "He waited for you." I whirled, crowbar slipping from clammy hands. The pool mirrored me, but aged gray hair, sunken eyes. I stumbled out, slamming the door. It sprang back, hinges rattling. "Stop it!" I roared, voice raw. The voices giggled, a dozen throats in unison. "He waited. You didn't come." I ran to the nurse's station, rifling through files, papers fluttering like ash. Found one, James, admitted 1974. Delusions, aggression, lost in group session. My Jamie came in 1995. Not him, but that laugh, that sketch. My mind reeled. The lights throbbed, and footsteps sounded. Measured, purposeful, turned. A silhouette stood at the hall's end, small, childlike. It waved, hand jerking like a marionette's. I blinked. It faded. The air chilled, clinging like a damp shroud. "You're not real," I muttered, but my voice quavered. The voices replied, gentle, almost mournful. "We're realer than you." I lurched back, toppling a chair. Files scattered and one snagged my eye, a photo pinned to a report. Jamie's face pale, staring. Not my brother. Couldn't be. Yet those eyes, they were his. Sixth night, I'm through with games. Brought a boombox. Found a cassette in Ward C marked Session 9 in wobbly ink. Slotted it in, pressed play, expecting garbled noise. Heard a woman's voice instead, quaking, frail. "They're still here. They won't release us." Screams erupted, jagged and layered. A crowd unraveling together. I flinched, coffee splashing my knuckles. Kept listening. A man followed. Patient 47 breached containment. It's spreading, then quiet, thick and long until me. My voice, "Jamie, I'm sorry. I hadn't spoken that here, ever." Rewound, replayed. Same thing. My regret, looping, swelling louder each cycle, clawing from the speakers. The boombox sparked, smoked, went dead. The hushed voices took over, chanting sorry, 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 from every angle, walls, floor, my own skull. I stomped the cassette, plastic cracking under my heel, but the chorus persisted, unyielding. "You brought us back," they declared, sharp and frigid. Brought what? I'd done nothing. Paced the room, growling, "This place is messing with me." Then I saw him, Jamie, in the doorway, pale, eyes black as pitch. "You left me," he said, voice echoing off-key, like it rose from deep water. I blinked. He melted away. The air turned icy, dense, squeezing my ribs. I ran, corridor warping, doors banging as I passed. One burst open. A glimpse of a room, figures strapped down, mouths gaping silently. Kept running, legs aching, until I reached my truck. Gasping, I played the recorder. Caught it all, my voice. "You brought us back." Then Jamie's, faint, "Don't leave again." I stared at the dashboard, hands locked on the wheel. The boombox was junk, but that sound lingered. A hum beneath my flesh, inescapable. Glanced at Greystone. A window pulsed, 3rd floor. No one there. Yet the voices followed me home, murmuring in the corners of my mind. 7th night. I'm a wreck, sleepless, surviving on stale chips and guilt. Back at Greystone, 3rd floor, mirror room. Stood there, studying myself. Dark circles, scruffy jaw, a man teetering on the edge. Then the reflection smirked, slow and broad. I didn't move a muscle. "Screw this," I snarled, swinging the crowbar. Glass shattered, fragments cascading. But that grin lingered, hovering in the dark like a predator's taunt. Jamie's voice crept in, quiet, accusing, "Why'd you let me die?" I dropped the crowbar, hands quaking like reeds in a gale. "I didn't. I tried." The room retorted, walls groaning, "Liar." Silhouettes unfurled, curling like talons across the floor. I bolted, but the hall stretched, doors vanishing. Only that cursed mirror at the far end. Jamie stood within, 16, blood streaking his shirt. "You drove," he said. "You killed me." "It wasn't like that," I screamed. The crash, rain, slick asphalt, me too drained to swerve. My blame, yes, but I'd locked it away. Now Greystone pried it loose, shoving it down my throat. The hushed voices surged, 1,000 tongues flaying me. "Guilty, guilty, guilty." I collapsed, knees cracking on tile, and felt hands, small, frigid, clamp my shoulders. Looked up, empty air. Yet the pressure deepened, rooting me there. Crawled to the stairwell, tears streaking my face like a scolded child's. The photo slipped free, Jamie in that gown, smiling. Behind him, a faint shape, older, gray-haired, observing. Me? I wiped my eyes, checked again. Vanished. The lights hummed, and Jamie's voice breathed, "Stay with me." I ran, but the stairs circled, back to the mirror, back to his face, blood thicker, eyes blacker. "You can't run," he said, and the silhouettes coiled, snaring my legs. I thrashed free, staggered into a room, bare, just a bed frame and moonlight leaking through a high window. The voices followed, a swelling chant. Stay, stay, stay. I pressed against the wall, breath ragged, muttering, I'm not staying anywhere. The mirror's frame remained, edges glinting like teeth. Jamie flickered, then me, older, gaunt. You will, it said, voice alien. I punched it, fist bleeding, glass crunching. The voices cackled, a wild, unhinged sound, as blood dripped onto the floor. Eighth night. I'm hunting truth like a starved hound. Found a file room, papers strewn like fallen leaves. Moldy, ripped, but readable. Sifted through, hands grimed, until I struck gold. A letter, undated, scrawled in haste. To whoever finds this, they lied. The sessions weren't healing. They tore something open. It's in the walls, the floors, us. I hear her now. My daughter, gone 5 years, calling me. It knows your breaking point. Don't linger. Signed, Eleanor, nurse. Experiments? I thought lobotomies were the ugliest of it, but this hinted at something darker. The air warmed, clammy, like a breath grazing my neck. Turned slow. A woman stood there. Gray uniform, eyeless, lips moving without sound. You read it, she said, voice flat as stone. Blinked. She dissolved. The letter shivered, words morphing. You're next. Pocketed it, heart racing. The murmurs shifted, begging now. Help us, they pleaded. Free us. I laughed, sharp and bitter. Free you? I can't free myself. A door side open, basement access, sealed before. Eleanor's voice lingered. It's down there. Obviously, lady. I gripped my crowbar, descended. Stairs glistened, slick, the air dense with decay and dampness. Something skittered, rats, perhaps. Or not. The voices pursued, fiercer, louder. You can't stop it, they hissed. I growled, watch me, and pressed on. Reached the bottom. A faint blue glow pulsed ahead, rhythmic as a heartbeat. The letter weighed heavy, Eleanor's warning looping in my skull. Whatever they'd unleashed, it waited, and it whispered my name. Ninth night, I'm drowning in this. The basement's a tunnel, concrete, slick, endless. My flashlight's weakening, beam flickering like my resolve. The passage curved when I wasn't watching, walls inching closer. Footsteps resounded, not mine, heavier, dragging, wet thuds on stone. I turned, light unsteady. Darkness stared back, but the sound neared, deliberate, savoring my panic. Show yourself, I shouted, voice rebounding. No reply, just a low, bubbling exhale. A door emerged, metal, rusted, handleless. Pushed it wide. Inside, a ring of chairs, empty, facing inward. The air thrummed, queasy and deep, rattling my ribs. I sat foolish but drawn. The murmurs halted, then slammed into my head. Look, I obeyed. Shapes rose from the floor, human-like, faceless, swaying. One advanced, small, familiar. Jamie, you forgot me, he said, voice splintering. I stood, crowbar raised. You're not him. He cocked his head, grin too wide, teeth glinting. The others edged in, silent, grasping. I swung, struck nothing, stumbled. The room whirled, chairs gone, walls weeping like wax. Ran, but the tunnel looped, spitting me back to that circle. Jamie's shape loomed, taller, eyes black voids. Stay, he pleaded, voice warped. I shoved past, flesh crawling, pulse pounding. The passage stretched on, relentless, my legs screaming. A cry, not mine, tore through, raw and piercing, echoing everywhere. I tripped, crashed down, flashlight skidding. Looked up. A figure, tall, thin, faceless, 10 feet away. I stood still. I didn't, scrambling upright, running, lungs searing. Hit a dead-end, solid wall, no escape. Turned, empty. But the voices chuckled. You can't outrun us. The air thickened, and I felt them. Unseen eyes, boring into me from all sides. 10th night, I'm splintering. Found a hatch in the basement, hidden under rubble, rusted, stubborn. Forced it open with the crowbar, ladder plunging into shadow. Descended, air cold and cutting, stinging my throat. Landed in a chamber, stone walls, bloodstains flaking like old paint. At the center, a table, papers strewn like ash. Snatched one. Project Echo, 1973. Emotional resonance amplification. Success. Entity containment. Failure. Entity escape. Scrawled below, it feeds. Feeds? On fear? Shame? Mine? The murmurs erupted, wild, overlapping. You're ours, they declared. Jamie flickered, not solid, a wraith. Troy, help me. He breathed, voice frail. I reached, reckless. My hand passed through, but I felt him. Ice, anguish. Jamie jerked back, gasping. The room throbbed, walls oozing red, dripping slow. Another page. Subject 47, Eleanor's patient. Source unknown. Entity bonded. Clicked, her daughter, the voices. They'd birthed this, fed it their grief, and it swelled. The shapes circled, chanting my name like a twisted hymn. Jamie's voice pierced through. You let me die. I snapped. I didn't mean to. The chamber quaked, dust falling. The fissure split the floor, blue light pouring out, dazzling. Peered in. Faces, hundreds, screaming silently, trapped. Jamie reached among them. Is that you? I asked, voice cracking. No reply. The tall figure loomed, faceless, observing. What do you want? I roared, pointed at me. The voices thundered. Everything. I reeled, dizzy. More notes. Echo amplifies loss, reflects it back. My loss. Jamie. The wreck. The figure advanced, air frosting around it. I swung, missed, but the fissure gaped wider, light pulsing. Faces pressed closer, pleading. Free us, they wailed. How? Another sheet, torn, stained. Destroy the source. The table? The rift? Me? The figure lunged, claw outstretched. I dodged, spotting a rusted scalpel on the table, left from some forgotten procedure. Grabbed it, ran for the ladder, voices howling in my ears. 11th night, I'm through fleeing. Back in the chamber, crowbar in one hand, scalpel in the other, facing that rift. The light blazes now, faces vivid. Jamie's among them, eyes imploring. The tall figure waits, silent. You want me? I said, voice firm. Take me. Stepped nearer. The murmurs exploded, gleeful. Yes, yes, yes. A tug gripped me, like the earth tilting, pulling me down. Jamie's voice cut in. Don't. I halted. You? I asked, throat tight. The figure surged, swift, hands striking my chest. Cold seared through, memories flashing. Jamie laughing, the crash, blood on my palms. I screamed, fell, stone bruising my knees. The faces cried out, reaching. Free us, they begged. Smash it? Join it? I stabbed the rift's edge with the scalpel, light flaring, voices shrieking louder. The figure seized me, hoisted me effortlessly. Mine! It grated, voice like grinding stone. I drove the scalpel into its arm. Black ichor oozed. No blood. It dropped me, hissing. I ran for the ladder, legs wobbling, glancing back. Jamie smiled, faint, fading. I'm sorry, I rasped. The rift pulsed, swallowing air, shapes, all of it. Climbed, lungs aflame. As the chamber crumbled, stones splitting behind me. Reached the basement, coughing dust, ears ringing. The voices dimmed, then flared. One clear, you can't leave. I laughed, rough. Watch me. Staggered to my truck, sped off, Greystone receding in the mirror. But the chill stayed, heavy, like hands lingering on me. Was he free? Were they? Or did I just swap one prison for another? Last night? Or was it? Escaped, truck rattling as I gunned it. Greystone squats there still, lights winking in windows I never touched. My recorder's brimming, hours of murmurs, Jamie's voice, mine, pleading, screaming. Played it, hands unsteady. Final words, you're free. Jamie's? Mine? That thing's? No idea. Home now, coffee cold, staring at that photo. Jamie in the gown, me behind, older, gray. The letters here, Eleanor's words twisted. It's not over. Burned it, watched it shrivel. Yet the air's dense, like greystone tagged along. Tap at the window, slow, measured. Looked, nothing. Then my reflection smirked in the glass. I didn't. Phone buzzed, dead, screen dark. Glowed anyway. We're still here. Hurled it, glass shattering across the floor. The hushed voices began, soft, in the walls. Troy, not loud, not furious, just present, waiting. I laughed, raw, fractured. You don't get me that easy. Grabbed my keys, bolted out. Where? Anywhere but here. Drove past Greystone once more. Fog rolling thick as broth. A shape shifted, tall, thin, watching. Jamie's voice echoed in my skull. Go! Did I free him? Them? Or just rile it up? The road stretched, fog devouring it. A sign blinking. Greystone Asylum, 3 miles back. Checked the mirror. Fog. No road. Just me and a murmur. Finally, you're here. I floored it, pulse racing. But the mist closed in, headlights rebounding. Was I escaping or diving deeper? The hollow call. The door swung open on its own, and I damn near dropped my beer, the bottle slipping in my sweaty grip. Finally, you're here? A voice rasped from the hallway, low and gritty, like it had been scraped raw by years of dust. I'd been out of the army for 2 years, holed up in this crumbling apartment with peeling walls and a fridge that growled louder than a tank. No one was supposed to be here. I didn't invite ghosts to crash my night. My pulse slammed against my ribs, fast and uneven. I set the bottle down, slow, deliberate, like any sudden move might wake something I couldn't handle. Who's there? I called, my voice rougher than the sandpaper I'd used to fix up my truck. No reply came, just the steady drip of the sink and that fridge wheezing in the background. I snatched the baseball bat propped against the couch. Old instincts from the service never really fade, and crept toward the hall. The air thickened, heavy as a wet blanket, pressing against my chest. I flicked the light switch with my elbow. Nothing happened. Either the bulb was toast or something didn't want me to see. The doorway yawned ahead, black and hungry, waiting. That voice drifted out again, faint, teasing. You can't keep running, Tim. Running? From what? I ditched the war. The grit, the shouts, the nights I still woke up choking on phantom smoke. I shook my head, muttering, pull it together, you jackass, and inched closer. Something shifted in the dark. Not a figure, just a shimmer, like heat warping the air. I swung the bat, hard, felt it whistle through nothing, and barked a laugh, sharp and jagged. Fuck you, shadows, I said, slamming the door shut with a thud that rattled the frame. But as I turned away, a whisper brushed my ear, close and cold. We're not done. My skin erupted in goosebumps, every nerve tingling. I spun, bat high, but the hall was still, door locked, air quiet. I stood there, breath ragged, telling myself it was just the PTSD screwing with me again. I'd done the therapy, swallowed the meds, counted my damn breaths like they taught me. This wasn't that. This was something else, something alive. I dropped onto the couch, grabbed the beer, and downed half in one gulp, the cold fizz grounding me. The TV blinked on some late-night ad about knives sharp enough to slice steel. I hadn't touched the remote. Screw this, I growled, jabbing the power button, till the screen went dark. The static hum lingered, though, buzzing in my teeth. I rubbed my face, trying to shake the itch that something was staring, waiting for me to crack. Later, in bed, I lay staring at the ceiling, shadows twisting into shapes I refused to name. Sleep dodged me. That voice wouldn't let go, and neither would the hollow. That outpost, that miserable pile of concrete and rust we'd babysat during the worst stretch of my life. I'd buried it deep, swore I'd never dig it up. But now, it was like the place had clawed its way back, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Miss me, Tim?" I rolled over, smashed my fist into the pillow, and told myself it was nothing. A bad night, a glitch in my head. But I knew better. Something was reaching for me, and it wasn't stopping till I faced it. I closed my eyes, the drip of the sink counting down like a clock, ticking toward whatever came next. Next night, I was hauling lumber down Route 17, the kind of empty stretch where trees lean in close, like they're jealous of the road. My rig's radio had been dead for weeks, wouldn't even cough up static, so when it crackled alive, I nearly veered into the ditch, tires squealing. It started with a hiss, sharp and dry, like wind rattling through bare branches. Then the voices broke through, clear, cutting. "Tim, you remember the ridge? That was Danny, nasal and quick. The kid who'd smoked till his lungs gave out. He died out there in the mountains. I'd seen the chopper haul him off, a bloody mess strapped to a stretcher. My hands locked on the wheel, knuckles bleaching white. I lunged for the knob to kill it, but another voice slid in. Tim, you left us." Sarah, her slow drawl was a knife twisting in my gut. She'd been my spotter, my anchor, till she wasn't. 2 minutes into this nightmare, the real gut punch landed. My own voice, flat and icy, hissed from the speakers. "They're better off gone." I slammed the brakes, the rig lurching to a stop on the shoulder, gravel crunching under the tires. I'd never said that. Not out loud, not ever. Had I thought it? Maybe in the black pit of my mind where the shame lived. The voices piled on, overlapping, a swarm of the dead. "You walked away, Tim. Didn't even look back." I tore at the wires, ripping them free with a snarl, my fingers stinging from the effort. Silence dropped, heavy and sweet, like a blanket after a storm. I sat there, chest heaving, staring at the dashboard like it might explain itself. Then it came, tap, 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 slow and sharp on the passenger window. I jerked my head up, saw only my own face in the glass, pale, eyes wide. "Get it together," I rasped, scrubbing a hand over my jaw. I fired the engine back up, the rumble shaking me steady, and eased onto the road. But the rear view caught it. Danny's grin, crooked and bright, flashing in the passenger seat. I blinked, and it vanished, leaving just the empty cab and the hum of the highway. I cranked the heat, sweat beating on my neck despite the chill, and kept my focus on the faded yellow lines. By the time I rolled into the next gas station, my skull was throbbing, a dull ache behind my eyes. I climbed out, legs stiff, and grabbed a coffee from the machine. Bitter, scalding like drinking tar. Leaning against the rig, I let the night air bite at me, waking me up. Another trucker shuffled by, gave a quick nod, and I nodded back, pretending I wasn't unraveling. Those voices, mine, theirs, the tap on the glass. They spun in my head, a carousel I couldn't stop. Was this what going crazy felt like? I'd seen guys break after the service, drowning in booze or worse. I wasn't them. Not yet. Back in the cab, I tossed the cup on the floor, the dregs sloshing out, and checked my phone. No signal, typical for this nowhere stretch. I laughed, a dry, broken sound that didn't feel like mine. "Perfect," I muttered, key turning, engine growling alive. The road unrolled ahead, black and endless, and I couldn't shake it. Something was riding shotgun, just out of sight, breathing quiet. I gripped the wheel tighter, told myself I'd sleep when I got home, but sleep wasn't coming. Not tonight, maybe not for a long damn time. The highway stretched on, and I drove, chasing the dark, wondering how much of me was still behind the wheel. By the third night, I was a mess. Eyes red as hell, hands twitchy, exhaustion gnawing at me like a dog on a bone. Something was missing, something big, and it wouldn't let me rest. I dreamed of the hollow that night, the outpost, a rotting slab of concrete and steel shoved into a mountain gap like a bad memory. We'd nicknamed it the Hollow because it drained you dry, light, sound, sanity, all gone the longer you stayed. In the dream, I stood at the gate, mist twisting around my boots, alive and greedy. They were there, Danny, Sarah, the whole squad, lined up in the haze, staring with eyes that didn't move. Their mouths synced up, a low drone shaking my teeth. "Come back!" I tried to bolt, but my legs were stuck, rooted in black muck. Danny stepped forward, half his face a ruin, and hissed, "You owe us, Tim." I woke up choking, sheets drenched, the clock glaring 3 a.m. in red digits. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. No name, no number, just a blank screen. I grabbed it, answered like a fool. Static snarled through. Then Sarah's voice, slow and heavy. "It's waiting, Tim." I smashed the end button, hurled the phone across the room, heard it clatter under the dresser. The pull hit then, fierce and deep, a hook yanking at my insides. I'd sworn off the hollow, locked it away with the rest of the war. But now, it was awake, alive, clawing me back. I didn't sleep after that. Slumped on the couch instead, staring at TV snow till dawn crept in. By morning, I decided, crazy or not, I was going. I needed to know, was this me breaking or something real dragging me under? I stuffed a bag, flashlight, knife, a fifth of whiskey to keep the shakes at bay, and hit the road in my rattling pickup. 6 hours ahead, each mile sinking heavier, like the world itself was saying, "Turn back." The radio stayed dead. I didn't need their voices piping up again, twisting the knife. I rolled the window down, let the wind slap me alert, sharp and cold. The closer I got, the worse it felt. A hum in my ribs, a itch I couldn't reach. Last gas station came at noon. A rusted shack with a clerk who didn't glance up from his rag. I snagged a pack of smokes. Quit years ago, but old habits die bloody, and lit one as I peeled out. The burn in my throat was a jolt, a tether to something solid. Dusk fell when I hit the sign, "Military property. Keep out." The words were chipped, eaten by time, but they still twisted my gut. I turned onto the dirt track, truck bouncing over ruts, branches clawing at the roof like desperate hands. The forest closed in, dark and thick, swallowing the last light. I laughed, rough and raw. "Keep out? Yeah, sure, that's me." The whiskey rattled beside me, calling, but I kept my hands steady, eyes on the path. The hollow emerged as the sun died, squat, grim, all cracked concrete and hollow windows. Mist rolled in fast, white and dense, eating the edges of the place. I killed the engine, sat listening to the quiet. No birds, no breeze, just a hush that pressed my ears flat. I grabbed the bag, stepped out, took a long drag on the cigarette. The air stank, wet stone, old metal, a faint whiff of something sour, like spilled blood gone bad. I stood at the gate, same as the dream, feeling it. That pull stronger now, a rope tightening around my chest. "All right?" I said, flicking the butt into the dirt, watching it spark and die. "Let's see what's calling." The mist shifted, and I caught it. A shadow, tall and lean, sliding through the haze, gone in a blink. My hand dropped to the knife on my belt, fingers curling tight. Whatever was out there, I wasn't walking in blind. Not this time. The fog slammed into me as I crossed the gate, cold and thick, wrapping my legs like it wanted to pull me down. The hollow squatted ahead, its busted windows glaring like dead eyes, daring me to step closer. I'd spent 6 months here, freezing through winter nights, sweating out summer days, always braced for the shit to hit the fan. And it had. One night I'd shoved so far down I could almost believe it never happened. Almost. Now, standing here, it felt like the place remembered me too well. I clicked the flashlight on, the beam slicing a frail line through the murk. The air tasted sharp. Rust, damp rot, something metallic that stuck in my throat. Each step crunched, gravel, glass, whatever the years had left behind. I kept the knife out, blade forward. 'Cause you don't stroll into a place like this empty-handed. The quiet was brutal. No wind, no critters, just my breath sawing the silence apart. Then it hit. A dull thud, boots on dirt, off to my left, close enough to make my spine stiffen. I swung the light, saw only mist swirling lazy and thick. "Who's out there?" I barked, voice echoing off the walls, rough as gravel. No answer, just another thud, nearer now, deliberate. My blood raced, that old fight-or-flight itch flaring hot. I'd faced ambushes, bombs, nights lit by gunfire. I wasn't about to flinch at some creepy noise. "Come on, then," I muttered, edging toward the main building, flashlight trembling just a hair. "Let's see you try." The door dangled off its hinges, groaning as I shoved it open with my shoulder. Inside, the chill deepened, the air stale and heavy, like the place had been sealed shut too long. The beam caught, dust drifting slow, Chairs tipped over, paper strewn like someone bolted mid-shift. I kicked an empty can, heard it rattle into the dark with a tinny clang. Then those steps came again, slow, measured, right at my back. I spun, knife slashing, light cutting wild through the haze. Nothing there, just the room, mocking me with its emptiness, my sweat cooling fast. "All right, Tim, ease up," I said aloud, needing the sound of my own voice to cut the tension. I lowered the blade, took a breath that burned my lungs, and pushed deeper. The hall stretched long, doors lining it. Barracks, mess, the comms room where Danny'd smoked, till we all stank of it. Memories surged. Sarah's laugh, sharp and bright. The squad hunched over cards, betting smokes and insults. Then that night, the one I'd buried, clawing up like a corpse refusing to stay down. I paused at the comms room, door half open, hinges creaking. The light caught a mark on the floor. A boot print, fresh, wet, pressed into the dust. My stomach flipped. No one been here in years, not since they locked this place up tight. I crouched, traced it with a finger, damp, cold, like it had just been made. "What the hell?" I whispered, standing quick. The mist was leaking in now, curling through the gap, and with it came a murmur, low, wordless, buzzing under my skin. I stepped back, keeping the print in sight, when a scrape cut the air, metal dragging on stone, fast and harsh. I turned, saw a chair twitch, sliding an inch on its own. My throat tightened. "Not today," I said loud, firm, like I could bully it back. But the murmur swelled, rattling my skull, and the fog thickened till the walls blurred. I stumbled toward the exit, pulse racing, when the steps erupted. Not one pair, but a dozen, all around, pounding through the haze. I swung the flashlight, caught flashes, tall shapes, thin, vanishing fast. "Face me!" I roared, voice breaking. The mist ate the sound, and for a split second, I saw them. Pale eyes, unblinking, peering from the dark. Then nothing, just me, alone, gasping, wondering if I just stepped into my own grave. I stood in that hall, fog choking the air, my flashlight flickering like it was on its last gasp. The steps had faded, but the quiet was heavier, daring me to twitch. I gripped the knife till my hand ached, sweat slicking the handle, and muttered, "You're not some green kid, Tim. Toughen up." I'd seen worse, firefights, blood, chaos you could taste. This was different, though. A slow creep that burrowed deep, gnawing at my nerves. I edged back to the comms room, that wet print still gnawing at me. The door whined as I pushed it wider, the sound slicing through the hush like a scream. Inside, time had stopped. Rusted radios, a toppled chair, cigarette butts littering the floor like Danny just left. My light swept over it, landed on something that turned my gut to ice. A pack of smokes, Danny's brand, pristine, sitting on the table. No dust, nowhere, fresh as if he'd dropped it yesterday. I grabbed it, flipped it over, the plastic cool and smooth. "No damn way," I said, voice quivering. This wasn't some relic, it was new, too new. I let it fall, watched it hit the floor, and then she spoke. "Tim," Sarah's voice, soft, right at my shoulder. I spun, knife slashing, light carving through the mist. Nothing, just the room, my breath loud and jagged. "Sarah," I rasped, feeling like a fool calling out to a ghost. She was gone. I'd held her till she stopped moving, felt her go cold. But it came again, stronger. "You shouldn't have come back." My legs wobbled, knees threatening to give. I staggered back, hit the table, sent the smoke skidding. The fog thickened, climbing the walls, and more voices joined, Danny's whine. "You left us, man," blending with the squad, a tangle of whispers clawing at me. I pressed my hands to my ears, but it was useless. They were inside, a swarm buzzing my brain. "Shut up," I bellowed, swinging the knife at the air, wild and desperate. The voices snapped off, leaving just the fog's low hum. I stood, chest rising fast, when a clatter broke the stillness, a can rolling slow from the corner. I aimed the light, watched it stop, like someone nudged it and walked off. My laugh was shaky, thin. "Nice trick, jerks," I said, stepping closer. Then I saw it, scratched into the wall, fresh, dust still falling. Tam was here. My breath caught, my own scrawl staring back. I hadn't touched this room, not tonight, not in years. What's this shit? I hissed, reaching out. The wall was damp, icy, like it was sweating. The fog pulsed, and the voices crept back. You know what you did. You can't bury it. I lurched away, tripped over the chair, crashed hard. The flashlight spun free, beam dancing, catching glimpses and something else. A shadow, tall, lean, framed in the doorway, gone when the light steadied. I scrambled up, snatched the flashlight, aimed it dead on. Empty. Just mist and that pack of smokes, mocking me from the floor. This isn't happening, I chanted, low and fierce, like I could will it away. But the air shifted, a chill brushing my neck, light as a touch. I bolted, knife out, light slashing, back to the hall. The echoes chased me, voices, steps, a laugh I knew too well. The squad, alive and dead, ringing through the dark. I didn't slow till I hit the outer door, bursting into the fog, gasping like I'd run a mile. My hands shook, the knife glinting wet. Wet with what? I wiped it on my jeans, staring into the haze, wondering how long I could keep telling myself this was just my head screwing with me. The hum answered, low and patient, waiting for my next step. I stumbled out of the building, fog swallowing me fast, the cold clawing at my chest. My flashlight sputtered, weak and fading, but I pushed on, knife tight in one hand, the other pressed to my ribs like I could steady the panic. The echoes clung to me, steps, voices, that mocking laugh, till I hit the open yard and they dimmed, swallowed by the mist's hum. I stopped, doubled over, sucking air that burned, telling myself I wasn't bolting. Not yet. The hollow sprawled around me, a ruin of concrete and twisted metal. The fog so dense I could barely see my own boots. I straightened, wiped sweat from my brow, and growled, "What's next, you bastards?" That's when I saw him, Danny, by the watchtower, solid and real. His uniform hung in shreds, half his face a bloody wreck, just like that last night. He grinned, that lopsided smirk he'd flash before sparking a cigarette, and my stomach rolled, while rising sharp. "Danny!" My voice broke, thin as a thread. He didn't budge, just stood there, his good eye drilling into me, unblinking. I took a step, froze. This couldn't be. I'd carried him out, felt his weight go limp. "You're not here," I said louder, trying to force it true. He tilted his head, slow, deliberate, and that grin stretched, showing teeth too jagged, too many. My skin crawled, every hair standing sharp. "Missed you, Tim," he said, voice thick and wet, like something clogged his throat. I staggered back, the flashlight trembling, beam jerking across his face. Too pale, too still. "You're not him," I snapped, knife up, but he just watched, calm as death. "Missed you," he repeated, stepping closer, boots silent on the gravel. The fog parted, framing him, and I swung the light full on. He vanished, just mist and the tower's rusted groan. I barked a laugh, raw and unsteady, the sound bouncing back. "Yeah, screw you too," I muttered, turning away. But the air thickened, a weight pressing my shoulders, and that itch hit. Something watching, breathing close. I spun, knife slashing, light cutting wild. Nothing, just the haze, and then his whistle. Danny's whistle, shrill and taunting, weaving through the dark. It echoed, wrapping me tight, drilling into my skull, till I clenched my teeth against it. I lurched toward the barracks, needing walls, a barrier, anything to block this madness. The whistle tracked me, joined by a chuckle, his chuckle, low and mean. I slammed the barracks door shut, the bang cutting the sound dead, sharp as a blade. Inside, the air was sour, dust hanging thick, stinging my eyes. My light caught bunks, stripped and rusted, and a lone boot smack in the center of the floor. Danny's, scuffed and worn, like he just kicked it off. I stepped closer, breath shallow, and nudged it with my toe. It rolled, stopped, then slid back, upright, untouched. My chest tightened. I grabbed it, hurled it at the wall, heard it thud, and that chuckle came again, louder, from the dark. "Come on, man," Danny's voice rasped. Close, too close, right at my ear. "Don't be like that." I didn't turn, wouldn't give him the satisfaction. Stood frozen, knife shaking, the fog seeping under the door, pooling cold at my feet. Whatever this was, it wasn't letting go, and I felt it, the game shifting, the stakes climbing. I took a breath, slow and ragged, and waited, knowing the next move wasn't mine. The barracks felt like a crypt, fog creeping up my legs, that sour stink burning my nose. Danny's chuckle lingered, fading slow, and I stood there, knife unsteady, telling myself to grow a spine. "You're not real," I said loud, the words bouncing off the walls. "This isn't happening." But the boot sat there, mocking me, and the mist pulsed like it was alive, agreeing with him. I kicked the door open, stumbled back into the yard, needing air, space, anything to stop the spiral. The hollow was a blur, fog eating the edges, turning it into a smeared nightmare. My flashlight was useless, the beam swallowed fast, and Danny's whistle picked up again, faint but sharp, threading through the haze like a wire around my throat. I spun, slashing at nothing, yelling, "Come out, you prick!" The mist stayed quiet, till Sarah's voice slipped in, soft, heavy. "You can't fix it, Tim." That landed like a brick to the chest. I froze, breath hitching, memories clawing free. The ridge, the rain, the screams. I boxed it up tight, but now it was spilling out, jagged and real. "Fix what?" I shouted, voice splitting. "You're gone. All of you." The fog held its breath. Then Danny's whistle curled closer, right at my back. I turned, saw nothing, felt my grip on sanity fraying, thread by thread. I headed for the ridge, where it had all shattered. Maybe answers were there, or maybe I just needed to stare it down. The path was a mess, rocks slick, roots grabbing at my boots, but I kept going, flashlight jerking wild. The whistle tracked me, joined by steps. Not just his, but a dozen, crunching gravel like the squad was marching beside me. I stopped, ears straining, and caught it. Gear rattling, a cough, Sarah muttering, "Damn cold tonight." My legs gave, dropping me to the dirt, hands digging into the ground. "This isn't real," I whispered over and over, till my throat scraped raw. But it was. I smelled the smoke, felt the chill, heard them like they'd never died. I shut my eyes, saw it vivid. The ridge, gunfire flashing, Danny shouting for cover, Sarah bleeding out in my grip. I called it retreat, leave them. I'd walked away while they begged. "You coward." I hissed to myself, to them, to whatever was listening. The fog pressed closer, wet and icy, and Danny's voice cut through. "You left me to die." I looked up, saw blood seeping from the rocks, dark, fresh, pooling slow. My flashlight trembled, catching it. Not mine, not theirs, just there. "What's this?" I rasped, touching it, fingers sticky. The ground rumbled, low and mean, and the mist swirled, showing them. Danny, Sarah, the others pale, eyes hollow, staring. "You should have stayed away," Sarah said, flat, stepping toward the edge. I lunged, too slow, and she dropped, vanishing into the haze. "No!" I yelled, scrambling to the drop. Empty, just fog and blood. Danny laughed, wet and rough. "Liar!" I swung at him, hit air, stumbled forward, the ridge rising sharp ahead. The light caught more blood, smeared across stone, and I sank down, head in my hands, piecing it together. Was this me? My guilt cracking open? Or something worse, something alive, peeling me apart? The whistle started again, growing, and I grabbed the knife, stood. "Fine," I said, voice hard now. "You want me? Try harder." The fog tightened, voices hissing, and I pushed on, deeper into the murk, toward the heart of it all. The ground steadied, but my hands shook, the blood still warm on my skin. I wiped it off, slow, deliberate, and kept moving. The mist parted, just a sliver showing the path back to the compound. Whatever was out there, it wasn't done, and neither was I. I took a step, then another, the hum sinking into my bones, promising more, daring me to keep going. The ridge faded behind me, fog tugging at my back like it hated letting go. Danny's words, "You'll beg," looped tight in my skull, and Sarah's quiet stare haunted every blink. I gripped the knife till my fingers cramped, flashlight swinging loose, its beam a faint scratch against the haze. My boots slipped on damp rock, blood flaking off my hands, and I pushed toward the main compound, needing distance from that edge, from their voices still whispering my name. I stopped by the motor pool, rusted hulks of trucks looming, fog pooling low like spilled ink. "What do you want?" I yelled, throat raw, the sound dying fast in the mist. A breeze kicked up, cold, carrying their reply, "You, stay, join us." Not just Danny or Sarah now, the whole squad, a chorus of whispers sinking into me. My skin prickled, every instinct howling to run, but my feet wouldn't budge, glued by something I couldn't name. "Join you?" I laughed, harsh, the sound bouncing back hollow. "You're dead, you idiots." "I'm not." The fog pulsed, and Danny's voice sliced through. Sharp. "You sure?" My laugh choked off. I spun, saw him. Not the corpse, but the kid, grinning, cigarette dangling like old times. He stepped closer, boots silent, and Sarah flickered beside him, eyes steady, too dark. "We've been waiting, Tim," she said, soft, almost warm. "It's lonely here." I backed up, heels scraping gravel, rocks tumbling into the murk. "Lonely where?" I snapped, knife trembling. Danny shrugged, easy, like we were shooting the shit. "Wherever we landed after you bailed. It's good. No orders, no crap, just us." His grin stretched, unnatural, and Sarah nodded, closing in. "You can stop fighting." I swung the light, caught their faces. Pale as bone, still as statues, wearing my friends like masks. "This is a game," I growled. "You're not them." Danny's laugh was rough, grating. "Maybe not. Maybe better." He flicked the cigarette, and it dissolved midair. Sarah reached out, her hand hovering, cold pouring off her like frost. "Stay, Tim. It's simple." "Simple?" I jerked back, heart slamming my ribs. "You think I want simple? I've been dodging this hell for years. I'm not folding now." Sarah's gaze softened, almost pitying. "You're not dodging. You're here." Danny stepped closer, smoke lingering on him, sour and faint. "You came 'cause it fits. Let go, man. Be us." The fog squeezed, a band around my lungs, their voices sinking deep, tempting warm. For a flash, I felt it. No more dreams, no more weight, just stillness. But the blood on my hands flared, sticky, real, snapping me back. "No," I said, low, firm. "I'm not done." Danny's grin faded, Sarah's hand fell, and the mist churned, sharp and pissed. Their shapes blurred, dissolving fast. "You'll see," Danny whispered, voice thinning. "You'll want it." Sarah's last words hung. "We'll wait." Then they were gone, the yard silent, just me, the knife, the fog humming low. I dropped to my knees, head spinning. Was this real? A trick? Promise? The mist glowed faint, tugging me deeper, toward the core of the hollow. I stood, wiped my face, knife steady now. "Not today," I muttered, turning back to the compound. Whatever they offered, I wasn't biting, but it stuck, that whisper of peace, and it scared me how much I'd liked it. The fog watched, patient, as I walked on, each step heavier, the pull stronger. I tightened my grip, jaw set, and moved into the dark, knowing they weren't done waiting, and maybe I wasn't done listening. I lurched off the ridge, legs unsteady, fog clawing at my back like a jealous hand. Danny's taunt, "You'll want it," gnawed at me, and Sarah's drop replayed, her voice flat as she stepped off. I gripped the knife, blood crusting my fingers, and stumbled toward the compound, away from that offer I couldn't unhear. The flashlight dangled, beam weak, and their whispers trailed me, faint but relentless, calling my name like a chant. I hit the armory, door half caved, and slumped against the wall, breath sawing through me. The memory struck then, fast and brutal. Rain pounding the ridge, gunfire spitting light, Danny screaming, "Move!" Sarah was next to me, rifle jammed, swearing low. Ambush hit hard, insurgents everywhere, and I called it, pull back, leave the hurt. Danny took a bullet, chest blooming red. Sarah's leg was torn, and I dragged her out while he yelled my name. I told myself it was the only play, but his plea, "Tim, don't," rang louder now, unburied. I slid down, knife clattering, hands clutching my skull. I had no choice, I rasped, but it sounded thin, a lie even I didn't buy. The fog pulsed, and Danny's voice hit. "You left me to die." I looked up. Blood oozed from the rocks, dark, fresh, pooling slow like the ridge was weeping. My light shook, catching it, spreading. "That's not mine," I said, voice cracking. But it moved, deliberate, scrawling liar in the dirt, jagged and wet. I recoiled, heart hammering, as the ground growled, a deep shudder knocking me flat. The mist spun, and they were there. Danny, Sarah, the squad, pale, eyes black pits, ringing me in. "You did this," Sarah said, her tone slicing clean through. Danny stepped up, blood dripping, soaking the earth. "You walked away. We didn't." "I tried," I roared, grabbing the knife, scrambling up. "I couldn't save you." They didn't flinch, just stared, the blood creeping toward my boots. Danny's laugh gurgled, wet. "Tried? You ran." Sarah nodded, her wound gaping, fresh, dripping. "You picked." The others chimed in, "Coward, traitor, killer." A wall of voices crushing me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, just swung the knife, desperate, hitting nothing. They vanished, fog swallowing them, but the blood stayed, climbing my hands again. I dropped, clawing at it, smearing it worse, warm and thick. Then I saw it carved into the armory wall, deep, new, TIM kills. My scrawl, same as before, accusing. "No," I gasped, lurching back. "I didn't." But the memory sharpened. Danny pleading, Sarah's weight. The second I turned, left him bleeding. Had I killed him? Not with my hands, but with that call? The fog hummed, loud now, and their voices softened, coaxing, "Stay, Tim, fix it." I stood, shaking my head, knife steadying. "I'm not you," I said, loud, final. The blood pulsed, the words glowed, and I felt it, truth or close to it, clawing up from the dark. I'd run once, not now. I turned toward the hollow's core, the mist parting just enough, showing the way. I stepped forward, boots crunching, the ground trembling again. The blood stuck, a mark I couldn't shed, and Danny's laugh echoed, faint but there. "You'll see," he whispered, fading. Sarah's voice lingered. "We're patient." I wiped my hands on my jeans, slow, deliberate, and kept going. The hum sinking deeper, promising answers or something worse. The compound loomed, fog curling tight, and I tightened my grip, jaw locked. Whatever this was, guilt, ghosts, or my own damn mind, I was facing it. The air thickened, the path narrowed, and I walked on, each step a dare, knowing they were watching, waiting for me to break. I wouldn't, not yet. The fog herded me deeper, a gray cage around the hollow's heart, every step sinking heavier into the muck. Blood flaked off my hands, the knife my anchor, flashlight flickering like it was scared to stay on. Danny's laugh, Sarah's whispers, the squad's blame. They swarmed me, a buzz I couldn't shake. I hit the motor pool, old jeeps and trucks rusting into the earth, fog pooling low, glowing faint. I stopped, chest tight, that itch screaming I wasn't alone. "Come on, then," I muttered, turning slow, light sweeping the dark. Shapes darted, tall, thin, too many, slipping between the wrecks, vanishing fast. My pulse thumped, old training kicking in. "You want to fight? Bring it." The mist ate my words, and the shapes closed tighter, a trap snapping shut. A clang rang out, metal striking metal, close, sharp. I swung the light, saw a tire iron roll across the dirt, stopping at my feet like a gift. "Cute," I said, kicking it hard. It flew back, faster, smashing into a jeep with a shriek that clawed my ears. The fog pulsed, and Danny's voice hissed, "Getting close, Tim." I spun, caught his grin flicker by a truck, then gone. Sarah whispered, "Look harder," from somewhere behind. I stepped to the Jeep, knife ready, nerves singing. The air was colder, thick with oil and decay, and the shapes brushed me, light, fleeting, like hands testing my edges. I yanked the door open, expecting a corpse, but it was bare. Just a map, crumpled, blood-stained on the seat. My blood? I grabbed it, unfolded it, hands unsteady. The ridge was circled, ink bleeding through, and in the corner, my scrawl. Tom runs. Damn it! I breathed, crushing it, tossing it into the haze. The shapes laughed. Not Danny, not Sarah, but something low, primal, rumbling through the fog. I backed off, tripped on a crate, hit the ground hard. The flashlight rolled, beam catching something. A hand, pale, still, reaching from under the Jeep. I lunged up, aimed the light, gone. But the crate was cracked, dog tags spilling out, glinting cold. I scooped one up, Daniel R. Hayes, Danny's, then Sarah's, the squad's, all there, heavy in my palm. My throat locked. Why? I rasped, clutching them. The fog roared, the shapes surged. Hands now, real cold, grabbing my arms, my legs, dragging me down. I swung the knife, felt it bite, heard a wail that wasn't human. They dropped me and I ran, tags jangling, light slashing wild. The motor pool blurred, fog a wall, voices chasing. You can't escape it. You brought us here. I hit the fence, collapsed, gasping, the shapes hovering close, eyes shining wet. I pulled the tags out, stared at them, metal biting my skin. I didn't mean it, I said, voice splitting. The fog tightened. Danny's grin flickered ahead, blood dripping fresh. Doesn't matter, he said, stepping into the light. You're ours. The shapes lunged again, hands everywhere, and I felt it, the circle locking tight, no gaps left. I stood, knife up, flashlight fading. Not yet, I growled, backing toward the command post, the last holdout. The fog snarled, the shapes pressed, and I knew whatever waited there was the endgame. I gripped the tags, their edges cutting, and moved fast, the hum sinking into me, promising a finish, win or lose. The building rose, fog swirling, and I pushed on, breath ragged, the shapes at my heels. The door loomed, a black mouth, and I braced myself, knowing this was it. The last line, the last fight. I tightened my grip, stepped closer, and waited for the dark to swallow me whole. The command post hulkied ahead, a low bunker sinking into the dirt, fog spilling from its cracked windows like a slow bleed. I ran for it, shapes snapping at my back, Danny's grin flashing in the haze. The tags clinked in my pocket, a cold weight, and my flashlight died mid-step, dropping me into gray. I didn't slow. Hit the door hard, knife out, heart thundering like a storm. The dark inside was thick, wet with rot, but I kept going, hands scraping the wall, feeling my way. The air was dead, no movement, just a heaviness that clung. My boots grated on concrete, the sound vanishing fast, and I heard them, the shapes slithering in, a rustle like wind through dry grass. Come on, I roared, spinning, slashing at shadows. Something hissed, pulled back, but the hum roared up, rattling my bones, fierce and pissed. I pushed deeper, hands brushing rusted cabinets, a toppled chair, till I hit a desk and stopped, breath burning my lungs. The fog crept in, glowing faint, eerie, like it carried its own light. I dug in my bag, pulled the whiskey, took a slug that seared my throat, steadying me. All right? I rasped, wiping my mouth with my sleeve. Last stand time. I set the bottle down, gripped the knife, and waited, sweat beating cold. The hum split, Danny, Sarah, the squad, all at once. You can't win. You're home. Give in. Screw that. I spat, kicking the chair. It crashed into the dark, and the fog flared, shapes sharpening, tall, faceless, circling slow. I swung the knife, felt it catch, heard a shriek, raw and wrong. They eased back, eyes glinting like wet stone, and Danny stepped out, blood dripping, grin twisted. Told you, Tim, he said, voice thick. You'll beg. Sarah came next, dragging her leg, eyes black voids. "It's done," she whispered, reaching. I slashed, missed, and she grabbed my wrist, cold as a grave, strong as iron. "Let go," I bellowed, wrenching free, staggering back. The desk caught me, and I snatched the whiskey, smashed it over her head. Glass exploded, soaking her, and she laughed. A sound like breaking ice before dissolving into the mist. Danny lunged, quick, hands clawing my throat. I ducked, stabbed up, felt the knife sink deep. He reeled, blood gushing, but grinned wider. "That it?" he rasped, yanking the blade out, tossing it aside. I dove for it, hit the floor, and the shape swarmed, hands cold, real, pinning me, pressing my chest, my limbs. "You're ours," they hissed, a dozen voices in sync. I thrashed, kicked, strength draining, the tags digging into me. "No!" I screamed, clawing concrete, fingers brushing the knife. I grabbed it, swung blind, and they scattered, howling, fading back. I stood, shaking, blood and whiskey dripping, and saw it. A door, rear of the room, cracked open, light pulsing through. I bolted, shapes tearing at me, voices shrieking, "Stay!" I didn't look, slammed the door, fell into blinding white. The noise cut off, sharp, leaving my gasps alone. I was in a small room, bare, fog gone. A mirror hung, cracked, showing me bloody, wild-eyed. Then them, Danny, Sarah, the squad, behind me in the glass, smiling soft. I turned, nothing. Back to the mirror, closer now, watching. "What are you?" I whispered, voice splintering. Danny leaned in, breath fogging the glass. "You," he said, and the mirror blackened. I backed off, knife up, waiting, the air still, the hum gone. My hands shook, the tags heavy, and I stood there, alone, or not, knowing this wasn't the end, just a pause. The room held, quiet, but their smiles lingered in my head, promising more. I tightened my grip, breath steadying, and faced the dark glass, ready for whatever came next, or so I told myself. The room was a cage, concrete, no windows, just the black mirror and a silence that weighed like lead. Their faces, Danny's grin, Sarah's stare, stuck with me, cutting deeper than the knife in my hand. I stood, chest heaving, blood and whiskey staining me, waiting for the next hit. The air didn't move, didn't breathe. "Finish it," I muttered, voice rough, daring the dark. Nothing came, no shapes, no whispers, just me and that dead glass. I stepped closer, tapped it with the knife, slow. It rippled, thick, liquid, and Danny's grin surfaced, faint. "You win, Tim," he whispered, voice bouncing inside my head. "For now." Sarah flickered beside him, then the squad, all there, watching. I smashed the hilt against it, hard, and the glass shattered, shards slicing my hands, clattering down. The room groaned, floor trembling, and fog seeped in, thin, then thick, glowing pale. I backed up, hit the wall, trapped. "Win!" I laughed, raw, bitter. "This is winning?" The mist pulsed, their voices soft. "You're still here. You fought. That's something." I slid down, knife slipping, hands over my face. Something? It felt like nothing. Like I'd lost it all and kept walking anyway. The fog rose, cold, clinging, and I saw it. Blood pooling under the mirror, scrawling Tam stays. My own hand, steady, sure. "No," I rasped, grabbing the knife, standing fast. "I'm not staying." The mist rumbled, the room tilted, walls splitting, and I ran for the door, hit it, burst back into the command post. Fog swirled, shapes gone, and I kept running, motor pool, barracks, ridge, till the gate loomed, my truck a blur in the haze. Their voices trailed, fading. "You'll be back. You always are." I dove in, turned the key, peeled out, gravel flying. The hollow shrank in the mirror, fog eating it, till it vanished. I drove till dawn, hands shaky, tags heavy in my pocket. The radio stayed off, road empty, and I told myself it was done. But the pull lingered, faint, alive, tugging back. I stopped at a diner, sun breaking over the hills, and sat, coffee cooling, staring blank. The waitress asked if I was all right. I lied, said yeah, just worn out. Back in the truck, I pulled the tags, traced Danny's name. Sorry, I said, voice cracking, and tossed them out. Watched them gleam, then sink into the dirt. The pull eased, barely, but it wasn't dead, never would be. I started the engine, hit the gas, road stretching clear. Was it real? Did I win or just stall it? No clue. Maybe they're still there, waiting, whispering. Maybe I'll go back, when the guilt screams or the dark wins. Or maybe this was it. My hollow win, a fight I walked away from but didn't end. The truck growled, sun climbed, and I drove, not sure if I was fleeing them or chasing something worse.